MovieWeb.com.
Another song with no singers. Lyrics, no voices. Unseen performances.
Ordinary. Brown braided woman with big legs and full lips. Become yourself.
I got a real dead loving here for you now.
I guess this is goodbye.
Like you've never seen it before.
In the film, you have a scene with Felicia Rashad where you're using some very foul language. And I'm curious, what is it like to know that you have to curse out Mrs. Huxtable?
I'm so glad you said
intimidating that day?
Shame. Shame. I have shame flashes about it now. You know, it made it more of a challenge, but actually it articulated Thandie's self-loathing. The fact that she is able to be disrespectful to a woman who is so clearly, she's not Mrs. Huxtable in the movie, obviously, but who is so clearly, has so much grace and wisdom and dignity. And the fact that Thandie is dismissing that means she's dismissing it in herself. And there's a beautiful scene, which the two characters have together later on, where Felicia is applying a cold compress to Thandie's swollen face, and she says, you know, I know you because I was you, you know, I have been you, something like that. And that's one of the beautiful parts of the movie, is that they are all connected. They're all facets of each other. And if we, you know, if I reject Gilda, I'm rejecting myself. You know, so it was hard, but it thankfully earned the power of the scene where they came together.
And
Yeah.
Felicia
You
can
know.
handle it. Felicia can handle it. You know.
Yeah, she can.
She's tough, she can take
She's
it.
tough. She can take it.
Well, let me ask you, your character in the film, there's a very sort of Devil Wears Prada kind of thing going on with you and Janet
With
Jackson.
Janet, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah. Was that, you know, were there any sort of inspirations you were able to take from other things, or how was that sort of, talk about the relationship between Joe and Crystal?
Right. Janet plays my character's boss, and she's a very tough boss, very cold-hearted boss. And it worked really well because we kind of stayed separate and didn't talk, didn't interact on camera or off. And it fed into the relationship of superior and worker. And it was wonderful to have that experience and go through that sort of walk with her. And then it was even more wonderful when we finished and came to wrap and did our last scene, and we turned to each other eyeball to eyeball when it was all over, and it was like we were able to purge all the silence we'd held, and I appreciate you, I love you, and thank you. And it was a really wonderful, beautiful moment just to let it all out and just be Kim and Janet.
Oh, that's
You know, something I just realized that's so interesting is that Janet's character was disconnecting from you.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of disconnecting from her to some degree by the position that you're in, but you were also separately disconnecting from your own lives.
Yeah.
And the moment when they actually connected was when they connected with themselves.
With ourselves.
And that's kind of what the movie's about, you know? That if we disconnect from one another, we're actually disconnecting from ourselves. So there's this, we've got to find a link, you know, a common humanity. Everybody does.
And sort of finding yourself is in finding that humanity in someone else.
Because we're all one
Absolutely.
anyway,
We
and that
are.
basic human love, we get so caught up in our own little worlds and our own little issues and our own drama that we forget that, you know, the woman next door is suffering. So, and what would have, how could it have helped Crystal if somebody would have said, "Can I keep your
Yeah.
babies for you and you take a nap?" Or
But you wouldn't
know,
have let them, because that's not
Well,
how...
well, if you develop that sort of relationship and friendship of trust, and eventually, you know, maybe that could have saved somebody. But it's just a statement on life in general. We pass people on the street with
Absolutely.
little regard.
More
and
than little regard.
you don't know
we're
what-
repelled by people. I mean, the Buddhists say that what we find repellent in others is actually what we find repellent in ourselves. You know, and I think that that's, as soon as we start to dismiss other people, that should be a wake-up call to what am I dismissing in
dealing with
myself?
inside? Right.
You know, and we're so lucky that you know, film as a medium can allow us to just question these things and go on an exploration of, you know, what is it that we're trying to hurt in ourselves, and how can we heal that?
My